Welcome to Ex Confessions Unlocked, where lies, betrayal, and truth collide. Kindly subscribe so you don't miss any of this. We share new stories daily. Stick around and unlock the drama. Now, let's get into today's story. I wasn't snooping. Not really. His laptop was just open. It was late, past midnight, and he'd fallen asleep on the couch with the TV still muttering some true crime documentary into the quiet of our apartment. I'd come out to get a glass of water and noticed his laptop still glowing on the coffee table. I was going to close it. That's all. But my name was on the screen. Well, not my full name. Just the letter J. Subject line: Jay can't know about this. I mean it. I froze. My mouth went dry, water forgotten. I stared at it like the words would rearrange themselves into something harmless. Something boring. But they didn't. I don't know what I expected when I clicked on it. Maybe a surprise party. Or something dumb and innocent, like a gift he was planning to get me. But that hope lasted exactly 5 seconds. Her name was Claire. The email was to her. It was long, giddy, gross. And she wasn't me. The subject line was the least shocking part by the time I finished reading. I remember the way my heartbeat slowed, not sped up, but slowed, like my body knew I had to stay very, very calm or I might shatter. I sat on the floor, right next to where he slept, and read every word while he breathed deeply a few feet away. A full Gmail thread. Weeks of messages. Planning. Secrets. Laughing at me. I was clingy. Too sweet. The kind of girl who apologizes for everything and nothing. That one actually made Claire laugh in an email. She replied, "Let her apologize when we send out the invites." And then, wedding plans. Locations. Color palettes. Her mom was helping. His sister was excited. They'd picked a caterer. I saw photos of him in a suit I'd never seen. Standing next to her. Smiling like I'd never existed. I shut the laptop without a sound. My hand was shaking so badly, I had to press it to my chest, just to keep from knocking over the glass I'd never filled. I stood there for a long time. When I finally went back to the bedroom, I didn't cry. Not yet. I lay down on my side of the bed and stared at the ceiling and just floated. I met Martin 2.5 years ago at a climbing gym. He spotted me when I slipped halfway up a beginner wall and twisted my ankle falling down. He made some corny joke about catching me and I laughed because the pain hadn't hit yet. He offered me water, then carried my bag to the car like a gentleman. Looking back, I should have noticed how he performed kindness, like it was for an audience. But at the time, it felt thoughtful. Like someone seeing me. Wanting to be the kind of man who helped. Our relationship wasn't perfect, but I didn't think it was rotten. You know? We had disagreements, usually about my overthinking, as he called it. I always blamed myself. Maybe I did ask too many questions. Maybe I did need too much reassurance. Now I see what that was. Anyway, the next morning, I pretended everything was normal. That's probably the strangest part. I made coffee. I asked if he wanted eggs. He kissed the top of my head like he hadn't just destroyed me in his sleep. I wasn't ready yet. I needed time to process. To think. To make a plan. Because what do you do when you find out the man you've lived with for over a year is engaged to someone else? I didn't even know he was seeing anyone else. He was careful. Or I was too trusting. Probably both. The next turning point came 3 days later. He was out at the gym. I was alone again and couldn't help myself. I opened the laptop again. I needed more proof. I needed to make sure I wasn't insane. And maybe, I needed to see how far this betrayal really went. They had a shared Google Drive folder titled Forever Us. I almost laughed. The kind of sharp, humorless laugh that sounds like choking. Inside, a guest list. Vows in progress. A mood board with pictures of outdoor altars and golden hour lighting. She wanted wildflowers in her bouquet. He wanted tacos at the reception. And then I saw it, the date. 3 weeks away. 3 weeks. It was a small ceremony in her hometown, some vineyard upstate. Intimate. Family and close friends only. I wasn't on the guest list, obviously. But I knew some of the names. His sister. His cousin Max. Even his boss. That's when it hit me, everyone in his life knew. They weren't just planning a wedding. They were building a whole reality without me in it. While I folded his laundry. While I reminded him of dentist appointments. While I rubbed his shoulders after long days. Something in me broke open. Not in a way that made me cry or rage or scream. It was quieter than that. Almost still. I copied everything. Forwarded the emails to myself. Took screenshots. Downloaded the photos. Made a neat little folder labeled Clarity. Then I closed the laptop, tidied up the kitchen, and waited for him to come home. I started pulling away in small, almost invisible ways. Stopped texting him when he was out. Didn't initiate plans. Didn't ask where he was going or when he'd be back. He didn't notice at first. Or maybe he did, and just assumed it was normal relationship fatigue. The thing is, once you see the truth, you can't unsee it. You notice everything. How he avoids eye contact when he lies. How he deflects when asked about the future. How he flinches slightly when you say, "I love you." 2 weeks before the wedding, I told him I had to go visit my sister. Emergency. Family stuff. He looked relieved. I wanted to slap him. Instead, I packed a bag, kissed his cheek, and left. Drove to a quiet Airbnb on the outskirts of town and sat in stillness for 2 full days. Then I drove home. I wasn't angry anymore. I was focused. I found the wedding website. Password protected, but not clever, Clary and Martin 2025. It had RSVP links. So I clicked, yes. Attending. And in the notes section I wrote, "Can't wait to see the happy couple." Part of me thought he'd notice. That he'd see the RSVP. That someone would tip him off. That a lightning bolt of guilt would strike. Nothing happened. The week of the wedding, I ordered a new dress. Simple. Elegant. Black, of course. I found the exact location via the vendor's site and booked a room nearby. Packed my bag. Breathed deeply. Told no one. Not even my sister. Because this wasn't revenge. Not really. I just needed him to see me. To know I knew. To feel even a fraction of what I'd felt, sitting cross-legged on that floor in the dark. I arrived early. I always do. The venue was beautiful, I'll admit. Trees everywhere. Late afternoon sun spilling through the leaves like honey. People milled around with champagne flutes, laughing, adjusting their ties, hugging old friends. I wore sunglasses. Red lipstick. Confidence like a cloak. No one recognized me at first. His side of the family didn't really know me. He'd always kept me at arm's length around them, saying they were judgmental. I wonder now if that was a lie or a warning. I slipped into the ceremony space and sat in the front row. Left side. Groom's side. I watched him walk down the aisle. I watched his smile twitch when he saw me. It was brief. Just a flicker. But it was enough. He knew. I didn't look away. Claire looked beautiful. I'll give her that. Flowing dress, flowers in her hair, that stunned, joy-soaked glow. The kind I once imagined I'd wear. She didn't see me. Not then. Vows were exchanged. Rings slipped on. Applause erupted. I clapped too. At the reception, I waited. Let them dance. Toast. Laugh. Act like they hadn't built their happiness on sand and lies. Then when the mic was offered for toasts, I stood. Martin went pale. Claire tilted her head, confused. "I'd like to say something," I said, stepping forward, glass in hand. I didn't raise my voice. Didn't cry. I kept it light. Casual. "I'm just so thrilled to be here today," I began. "Watching these two souls come together after such a complex journey." People laughed nervously. I smiled. I especially admire the creativity it takes to plan 2 relationships at once. That level of commitment, really impressive. Claire looked at Martin. Martin looked at the floor. "I hope your marriage is full of honesty," I said, "since your engagement certainly wasn't." And then I raised my glass. To Claire. "You deserve to know the truth. And Martin, you already do." I walked out before anyone could stop me. And outside, under the golden sky, I finally let myself cry. But only for a minute. Because I wasn't broken. I was free. I didn't drive home right away. I sat in my car in the gravel parking lot behind the venue, engine off, windows cracked. The summer air smelled like pine and wine and dust. Inside me, everything was quiet. No panic, no rage. Just stillness. Then my phone started buzzing. 5 missed calls. Then 8. Then 12. All from Martin. I ignored them. Turned my phone on Do Not Disturb and tucked it into the glove compartment. I wasn't ready to hear his voice. Not after what I'd just said. Not after watching his mouth open and close like a stunned fish as I toasted to the end of his lies in front of his new wife. Claire hadn't followed me. I figured she was still reeling. Processing. Good. I stayed at the inn I'd booked for the night. A small, quiet place with chintzy floral wallpaper and a too-soft mattress. I took a long hot shower, washed the makeup off my face, and sat on the edge of the bed in the complimentary robe, staring at my reflection in the mirror across from me. I looked calm. But beneath that, there was a strange new emotion creeping in. Something I hadn't felt in a long time. Relief. The next morning, I checked my phone again. Martin had sent me one message. Just one. Martin, what the hell did you think that was going to accomplish? No apology. No explanation. Not even an ounce of remorse. I didn't respond. I didn't need to. It was the clearest confirmation I could have asked for. This man hadn't lied to protect anyone's feelings. He'd lied because he could. Because I made things easy. Because I believed him every time he told me I was imagining things or being dramatic or asking too much. Back home, I moved with purpose. I packed up his things. Every last item, shoes, socks, the coffee grinder he insisted on keeping on my counter space, his spare toothbrush, even the weird bonsai tree he never watered. All of it went into boxes, and the boxes went by the front door. Then I changed the locks. I'd already spoken to the landlord, who was more than happy to switch out the keys since the lease was under my name alone. Martin never got around to putting himself on the paperwork. Too much of a hassle, he used to say. Thank God for that. 2 days passed. Then 3. I started sleeping better. I read books again. Played the old records I used to love but stopped spinning because Martin said they were too moody. I went to the climbing gym, the same one where we met, and climbed solo. Higher than I'd ever gone before. At one point, while hanging from the wall halfway up a difficult route, I laughed out loud. A real laugh. A woman below looked up and smiled at me. That was impressive, she called out. I smiled back. Feels like flying. And it did. A week later, I got an email from Claire. I almost didn't open it. The subject line was just, you. But I clicked anyway. Joy. I don't even know where to begin. I can't stop replaying what you said. The way you said it. I didn't believe it at first. I thought maybe you were some bitter ex trying to ruin things. But then I started asking questions. And now I know. You were telling the truth. I'm sorry. I don't expect anything from you, but I wanted to thank you. For not letting it stay hidden. For being braver than I was. I've left him. I've gone to stay with my sister. I'm trying to figure out what's next. I needed you to know that your words mattered. Claire. I stared at the screen for a long time. Not out of triumph. I didn't feel smug. I didn't pump my fist or shout yes. I just sat there, breathing in the weight of what she'd said. Braver than I was. I didn't feel brave. I felt like someone who'd been burned, then decided to stop pretending the fire didn't hurt. Martin tried to come back once. He showed up at the apartment around 9 p.m., knocking hard. Joy. Open the door. I stayed quiet. Come on. At least talk to me. You think that little scene you pulled makes you some kind of hero. I sat on the couch, lights off, and listened to him spiral. You embarrassed her. You embarrassed me. My family, do you even realize what you've done? That was the moment I finally smiled. He still didn't get it. This wasn't about embarrassment. It was about truth. Eventually he left. He never came back. About a month later, I ran into Max, Martin's cousin, at the farmer's market. I recognized him instantly, though I was wearing sunglasses and had my hair pulled back. I tried to turn away, but he spotted me. Joy. I hesitated, then turned. Hey. He looked awkward, but not hostile. If anything, he looked sheepish. I just wanted to say, what you did took guts. I raised an eyebrow. You mean crashing their wedding? He shook his head. No. Telling the truth when no one else would. I knew he was seeing someone. I didn't know it was like that. I didn't reply. He lied to everyone, Max continued. Even told us you were crazy. That you were stalking him or something. That stung. But it didn't surprise me. He said a lot of things, I said quietly. Max nodded. Well, for what it's worth, I believed him. I shouldn't have. I'm sorry. I nodded. Thanks. Then I walked away with a basket full of tomatoes and the strange satisfaction of someone who no longer needed an apology to feel whole. You want to know the weirdest part? I don't miss him. Not even a little. What I miss is who I was before I met him, the version of myself that didn't second-guess every gut feeling. The one who didn't apologize just for existing. But I'm finding her again. She's coming back slowly. In the way I say no now without justifying it. In the way I leave conversations that don't feel good. In the way I wake up and stretch and smile to myself like I'm proud to take up space. I've been seeing someone new. It's early. Casual. Nothing dramatic. But he listens when I speak. Doesn't flinch at emotion. Doesn't make me feel like love is something I have to earn. Sometimes I want to tell him everything. Other times, I think maybe it's enough that he knows me now, not who I was, or what I went through, but who I'm becoming. I'll never forget the look on Martin's face when I stood at that wedding and toasted the end of his story. But I don't hold on to it like a weapon. I hold it like a memory. A reminder. That sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is leave someone speechless. It's strange how fast someone disappears when they no longer have control over your attention. Martin used to fill up rooms, even when he wasn't in them. His opinions lingered on my clothes, his preferences echoed in my fridge. For months, I'd get dressed and hear him in my head, you look better in dark colors, or you don't need heels, you're already tall. It wasn't controlling in the obvious way. It was subtle. Persistent. He sanded down the edges of who I was until I fit more neatly into his life. But now, weeks out from the wedding, the silence he left behind feels peaceful. Like the absence of a dripping faucet I didn't know was slowly driving me mad. A few more people from Martin's world reached out. Some apologetic. Some curious. One of them, Jess, an old friend of his, sent me a message late one night. Joy, I know we don't know each other well. But I was at the wedding. I heard your speech. It was the most honest thing I've seen in a long time. And I just want you to know, he's been doing this forever. You weren't the first. You just ended it louder. That line stuck with me. You just ended it louder. I didn't know whether to feel vindicated or nauseated. Mostly, I just felt tired. A few days later, I opened a cardboard box I hadn't touched since the breakup. Inside were old photos. Movie ticket stubs. A journal I kept when Martin and I first started dating. I flipped through the pages slowly. It was all there, my hopeful handwriting, little hearts in the margins, long entries about how different he felt. In one of the early pages, I'd written, "He notices everything. I've never felt so seen." God. That hurt. Because he did notice everything. That part was true. He just used it to shape me into something easier for him to hold. I closed the journal, stood up, and walked to the fireplace. No drama. No music swelling in the background. Just me alone, striking a match and dropping the journal in. It caught quickly. The pages curled and blackened, and for the first time in a long time, I felt done. A few weeks passed. The new guy I was seeing, his name's Theo, invited me to a friend's backyard dinner party. I almost said no. Not because I didn't want to go, but because I was nervous. That old voice in my head, the one Martin fed for years, kept whispering. What if you're too quiet again? What if you don't belong? What if you say something weird? But I went anyway. And about halfway through the night, Theo reached across the table and lightly touched my hand while someone else was talking. Just a small grounding gesture. No performance. No expectation. And I didn't flinch. At the end of the night, we walked to my car. The sky was clear, stars sharp and bright. Theo leaned against the driver's side and looked at me. "You're not what I expected," he said softly. I blinked. "That a good thing or a bad thing?" He smiled. "A very good thing." I smiled back. It wasn't the kind of smile you give when you're trying to win someone over. It was just real. I'd forgotten what that felt like. About a month after the wedding, I got one final email from Martin. The subject line, "We should talk." I waited a full day before opening it. When I did, here's what it said. "Joy, I've been thinking about everything that happened. I want you to know that I didn't mean to hurt you. Things got complicated, and I didn't know how to fix them. I wish you had come to me instead of doing what you did. That said, I don't think it's too late for us to have a real conversation. Just us. No drama. Maybe even coffee if you're open to it. Let me know. M***. I stared at the screen for a while. Then I closed the laptop and took a walk around the block. The sky was overcast. It smelled like rain. I passed a mother pushing a stroller and a teenager feeding a stray cat on the corner. Just small moments. Real life. And for the first time, I realized I didn't want to have that conversation. There was nothing left I needed to hear. So I didn't reply. Instead, I wrote a letter I never sent. Martin. I used to think closure was something someone had to give you. That I needed an apology, an explanation, a final conversation to make sense of it all. But I don't. What I needed was time. Distance. And the ability to remember who I was before you blurred the edges. You hurt me. That's a fact. But I'm not carrying that weight anymore. This is the last time I'll write your name. Be well. Joy. I folded the letter in half and slipped it into the back of a notebook. Not for him. For me. One of the last conversations I had with Martin before the wedding was about trust. He'd accused me of being paranoid, because I'd asked about a text I'd seen pop up on his phone. "You don't trust me," he said, half laughing. "You've got issues." And I remember looking at him, trying to explain how it wasn't jealousy, it was instinct. But he dismissed it. Now I realize, the people who mock your instincts are often the very reason you have them. I still have questions. I probably always will. How long was he planning that wedding? When did he stop being honest? Did he ever really love me? But those questions don't haunt me anymore. They don't keep me up. They just drift in and out like background noise. Like wind brushing against a closed window. Because I'm not trying to solve the puzzle anymore. I'm not trying to make it all make sense. Sometimes betrayal doesn't come with a clean origin story. Sometimes it just happens. And you move on. And sometimes, moving on is the biggest quiet victory of all. It's been almost 6 months now. 6 months since I RSVP'd to a wedding I wasn't invited to. 6 months since I stood in front of a room full of strangers and told the truth out loud. 6 months since I looked Martin in the eye and realized I didn't love him anymore, not the real him, not the version I tried to believe in, and definitely not the one who lied so casually it felt like breathing. Life didn't change all at once after that. There wasn't some grand awakening where everything clicked into place and I became a new person overnight. It happened slowly, quietly. Like standing in the sun after a long winter and realizing you're no longer cold. One evening I was sitting at a cafe downtown, my laptop open, half listening to the murmur of conversations around me, when I caught sight of a familiar face through the window. It was Nina, Martin's now ex-fiancée. She looked different. Softer. Tired, but lighter somehow. She wasn't wearing the high-gloss makeup she used to post in photos. Just jeans, a cardigan, and a ponytail. She didn't see me. I didn't wave. I watched her walk into the florist next door and come out with a small bouquet. No camera in sight. Just her and the flowers and the wind pushing her hair across her face. Something about that moment stayed with me. Because maybe she had her own story to reckon with. Maybe she wasn't just the other woman. Maybe she thought she was the only woman. Maybe she got blindsided too. I don't know. We never spoke after that day. We probably never will. And that's okay. Martin's social media went dark shortly after the wedding fallout. He disappeared online like someone trying to outrun their own name. I heard through someone, maybe Jess again, or one of the others who couldn't resist the post-chaos gossip, that he moved back to Chicago. Something about starting over. A new job. A smaller apartment. I wonder sometimes if he ever re-watches the video of my speech. If he regrets inviting me that day, even by accident. But mostly, I don't think about him at all. Theo and I didn't last forever. And that's okay too. We dated for a few months, helped each other heal in ways we didn't fully understand, and parted with kindness. No slammed doors. No accusations. Just a shared recognition that we were two people passing through each other's lives at the right time, but not the long time. He once said something to me that stuck. Sometimes people are chapters. And that's all they need to be. Martin was a chapter. A complicated, painful, unforgettable one, but not the whole book. I started writing again. Not for work. Not for anyone else. Just for me. Little essays. Observations. Scribbled thoughts in notebooks and margins. A few weeks ago, I wrote about that moment at the wedding. The stillness between my words, the sharp intake of breath when people realized what I was saying. I wrote about how calm I felt, not out of spite, but because the truth has a weight to it. And once you let it out, you don't have to carry it anymore. That piece ended up published on a small personal blog. Nothing fancy. But it got shared around a bit. Strangers messaged me. Women. Men. Even a couple who said they almost didn't go through with their wedding after reading it, and then decided to have a long overdue conversation instead. Funny how something born from so much betrayal can ripple out and become something honest. Something useful. Last weekend, I hosted a dinner for a few close friends in my apartment. Just a handful of people, good wine, warm food, and real laughter. We didn't talk about exes. Or heartbreak. Or what went wrong. We talked about work stress and weird dreams and books and favorite childhood meals. We argued about whether pineapple belongs on pizza. It does, I stand by that. And someone spilled sangria on my rug and we all just laughed instead of panicking. At the end of the night, I stood at the sink washing dishes, listening to music I liked, no one telling me to change it, no one rolling their eyes, and I felt it. That quiet, steady kind of happiness that doesn't need to prove anything. The kind you build yourself. So, here's where I'll end this. If you're reading because someone lied to you, betrayed you, made you feel like you were too much or not enough, whatever form it took, I want you to know something. You don't need the last word to move on. You don't need them to understand what they did. You don't need to win. You just need to come back to yourself. Slowly, honestly, and without apology. Sometimes closure isn't a door someone else closes for you. Sometimes it's just you, turning off the lights, locking the door and walking away. Not because you lost. But because you finally remembered you didn't have to stay.